Welcome to this channel. Today, we will discuss an interesting incident in the Caribbean Sea where a U.S. warship intercepted a small vessel from Venezuela suspected of carrying drugs. This incident demonstrates just how sophisticated open-sea anti-narcotics operations have become. The Caribbean Sea is known as a major funnel for drug smuggling from South America northward. This route is narrow and often exploited by smugglers to avoid detection. The U.S. Navy routinely patrols this area to maintain maritime security and combat illegal drug trafficking. Destroyers like the USS Gravely are equipped with cutting-edge technology. The incident began around 5:19 local time, when the U.S. ship's radar detected an unusual small surface contact with no eye signal or identification. The small vessel was moving at over 20 knots, which is unusual for normal civilian traffic in that area. This immediately caught the attention of the U.S. ship's crew. Using electro-optical cameras, the U.S. crew confirmed the vessel was under 40 feet long, with 2 outboard engines and heavy fuel load, but no fishing gear. Radio calls were made on international frequencies, but there was no response from the vessel, further strengthening suspicions that it was a smuggling boat. The small vessel's speed increased to 25 to 28 knots, indicating an attempt to flee. The U.S. ship maintained distance while continuing surveillance. The ship's air detachment prepared to launch a helicopter for aerial surveillance, while cameras continued recording 3 crew members on the small vessel without life jackets. The small vessel avoided main shipping lanes, showing its operators were experienced in evading patrols. This is a common smuggler tactic. Around 5:34, the helicopter was launched and provided overhead surveillance, detecting engine heat and hull vibrations from the small vessel. The small vessel tried turning right to disrupt tracking, but the helicopter easily followed. Radio warnings were repeated, and a non-lethal green laser was aimed at the small vessel's deck as a visual signal to stop. The U.S. ship's cannon was slightly rotated to become visible not to fire, but as psychological pressure. Around 5:49, the small vessel's speed began to drop due to fuel exhaustion and engine strain. From 30 knots down to under 15 knots, the small vessel attempted one final speed burst, but failed due to physical limitations. The helicopter stayed ahead, creating rotor downwash pressure. At 6:01, the small vessel slowed to 12 knots and ceased escape attempts. This was the victory point for the U.S. team. RHIB inflatable boats from the U.S. ship approached for boarding. The 3 crew members on the small vessel complied without resistance. Deck search revealed a covered hatch. When opened, it exposed 19 neatly wrapped bundles of cocaine. The cocaine was off-white, wrapped in 3 layers of plastic and burlap, with uniform sizes. Estimated street value, $98 million. Evidence was photographed, tagged, and logged for chain of custody. This ensures legal admissibility in court. The small vessel's crew was secured and searched. The vessel was towed for official seizure. Cocaine bundles were secured on the U.S. ship's deck and inspected for possible sabotage. Suspects were monitored separately to prevent communication. The entire operation was documented with video recordings and data. The U.S. ship continued its patrol after the incident, demonstrating operational efficiency without violence. This incident disrupted a smuggling network by preventing a drug shipment, impacting upstream funding and logistics. The tactics used emphasize layered awareness, radar, sensor data, and strategic positioning without direct pursuit. Physics, such as fuel limits and engine strain, overcame raw speed, combined with relentless surveillance. Operations like this are not just about seizing drugs, but also about gathering intelligence to map larger cartel networks in South America. Data from this incident could lead to follow-up operations. After the seizure, the cocaine bundles are tested in the ship's laboratory to confirm purity and origin, which often points to production from coca fields in Colombia or Venezuela. Suspects from the small vessel are usually interrogated professionally by special agents, which can reveal information about new routes or ground contacts. However, many remain silent due to fear of cartel retaliation. The seized small vessel is often analyzed forensically for DNA traces, fingerprints, or technical modifications that indicate smugglers' adaptations to patrols. This incident is part of Operation Southern Surge, a U.S. initiative to increase patrols in the Caribbean and reduce drug flows to U.S. shores. Collaboration with neighboring countries like Colombia and Mexico is crucial, as they provide ground intelligence that complements U.S. maritime operations. The economic impact of seizures like this reaches billions of dollars annually, weakening cartel finances and reducing drug-related violence in source regions. Drone technology is increasingly used in similar operations, providing long-range surveillance without risk to human crews. U.S. ship crew training includes simulations of incidents like this, ensuring fast and safe responses without violence escalation. International law, such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, supports U.S. actions in combating smuggling in international waters. After the operation, official reports are sent to the U.S. Department of Justice to process the case against suspects who could face decades in prison. Publicizing incidents like this through media helps educate the public about government efforts to combat drugs and prevent use. The evolution of smuggler tactics includes the use of semi-submersible vessels, which are harder to detect than traditional go-fast boats. U.S. investment in satellites and AI for maritime monitoring improves operation effectiveness, predicting smuggling routes based on data patterns. The environmental impact of drug trafficking includes deforestation for coca fields, contributing to global climate change. Rehabilitation programs for drug victims in the U.S. are partially funded by seized assets, helping break the addiction cycle. Cooperation with the U.S. Coast Guard strengthens operations, as they have more flexible boarding authority in certain waters. Statistics show that maritime drug seizures increased by 20% in the last decade, thanks to technological and intelligence advancements. This incident reminds us that the war on drugs is an ongoing struggle, requiring global commitment to address root causes like poverty in producer countries. Finally, operations like this save lives by preventing drugs from reaching the streets, reducing overdoses, and related crime in society. The fight against drug cartels often involves covert operations supported by intelligence agencies like the CIA, which monitor cartel activities through human assets and surveillance technology. In Venezuela, government-level corruption is often linked to cartels, making anti-drug operations increasingly complex due to political protection for smugglers. Drug seizures at sea like this also impact the global black market, where cocaine prices rise temporarily due to reduced supply, affecting consumers in Europe and the U.S. Advanced sonar technology on U.S. ships helps detect drug submarines, which represent an evolution from traditional semi-submersible vessels to evade surface radar. Public education on the dangers of drugs is a key part of prevention strategy, with campaigns supported by data from seizures like this one. Collaboration with international organizations like Interpol facilitates cross-border suspect data exchange, speeding up the capture of cartel leaders. The psychological impact on smuggling boat crews is often overlooked, as they face high risks for small pay, driven by extreme poverty. The use of commercial satellites from private companies helps the U.S. military monitor maritime traffic in real time, complementing military assets. Anti-drug operations also protect marine ecosystems, as smugglers often dump chemical waste from drug production into the ocean. In the U.S., funds from seized drug assets are used to build prevention infrastructure, such as detoxification centers and community recovery programs. The evolution of U.S. law, such as the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention Act, provides the legal framework for international operations like this. Social media plays a role in monitoring cartels, where public posts can provide intelligence clues about smuggling activities. Joint training between the U.S. Navy and international partners improves coordination, such as exercises with the Colombian Navy. The long-term impact of these operations includes a decline in addiction rates in society, supported by national survey data in the U.S. Innovations like underwater robots. Global campaigns promoted by the UN emphasize a holistic approach, combining law enforcement with economic development in drug-vulnerable regions. International statistics show that maritime operations account for 40% of global drug seizures, making them a key strategy in the war on drugs. Ultimately, the success of operations like this depends on sustained commitment from all parties to create a world safer from the threat of drugs.